Welcome back to HR Office Hours. I'm your host, Maddie, and I'm really excited about today's guest, Cindy Lynch. Cindy and I met back in 2020. Can you believe it? It's been 6 years. And we met at the SOAR conference, which is a HR conference from Sherm, Atlanta. They put on a fantastic conference. If you've not been and you have an opportunity, I highly recommend it. And at the time, as most conferences had to do and adapt, the conference went online, fully virtual. One of the things that they did very well was transition everything into collaboration online in different breakout rooms. And that's where Cindy and I connected. Cindy, so I'm going to let you jump in and kind of tell us a little bit about how that happened and how we connected in those online chat rooms, which a little bit to me felt like AOL chat rooms, which the best way possible.
Yeah. Well, we had been using Zoom for a long time, so I was already pretty comfortable with the virtual platform and using Zoom, but also just getting people involved and connecting with people. That's what HR people do best, right? That's what we enjoy doing. That's what jazzes up is making those connections, and it can be really hard to do virtually. And so just asking questions, trying to get to know people. What are you interested in? And I do remember connecting with you. And I saw such a fire in you and such unusual insights and the ability to connect with people. And it just kind of sprang up from there.
Yeah, and I know that the chat room that I was most active in was the HR department of one. And I remember that I was in there just answering questions, providing feedback, just and honestly mostly encouragement because I knew for me, HR department of one could feel like a very lonely place, and especially everything that we were going through during the pandemic. Now, I came from a different perspective as well because I had had experiences in much larger organizations and had transitioned into leadership in an HR department of one. So I had the scope and knowledge from larger perspective and then being able to implement that in a smaller organization as well. And so I provided that assistance to peers and I loved it. And so you and I then connected offline and you inspired me to start a blog, which I know it wasn't 2010. I started a blog in 2020 for HR department of one. You shared with me, hey, there's not a lot of folks focusing on smaller organizations, HR department of ones, or office managers who have the HR responsibilities in truly small organizations. And I really appreciated that perspective because I didn't really know that there was a gap.
Well, and I thought what I saw in you is most times HR departments of one get bogged down into the day-to-day tasks. They're dealing reactively to problems that are coming to the organization, was trying to fill a job, or you've got an employee issue, or there's payroll issue, or all of these kind of task things. And so it's really difficult for an HR department of one to show up as the strategic partner to their CEO, and that's what that person should be. And I remember the conversations that we had and talking to you, and I thought, that's it. She gets it. She does it. And so we started talking about like how do we elevate the HR department of one into their a strategic partner that the CEO needs to have around and is looking around. It's like I can't make this decision with my HR person because all of this touches the people in our organization.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned to you, as we've reconnected over the years, that evolved into this podcast because it isn't 2020 anymore. And really my perspective has also shifted into it isn't just about HR department of one, it's about the workplace overall and about leadership and development of the talents around us. And the workplace is more complex than just HR department of one or management or leadership. It is about the holistic look at the workplace, including the workforce itself. And here we are just having more conversations about what does that mean. And so you were gracious enough to say, hey, let's talk more about that
Yeah.
and how we got here.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I love talking about people.
Yeah.
And it's changed a lot. I think the HR landscape has changed a lot. And I think we need to still continue to look for ways to actively support each other and sharing best ideas, sharing best practices. There's no reason to go this alone. Whether you're an HR department of one, you're part of a larger organization, don't isolate yourself. Get out there and connect with other leaders that are doing what you're doing and learn from them.
That's right. How do we look at leaning on others, peers, colleagues, resources, and and that's where I want to jump in. Tell us about that specifically, your trajectory. Yeah, tell us about you.
Well, I love my business. I've been a Predictive Index partner, gosh, for going on 16 years now. Predictive Index is a behavior assessment, a workplace assessment that is used throughout the employee life cycle. It's really, really difficult to make good decisions without some objective data. Making decisions on gut, instinct, a hunch, whether you want to have lunch with somebody, I've heard that as a hiring criteria, it just doesn't work. And if you put the effort into the front end of making sure you're getting the right people in the right roles, which is what I hear HR always talking about, is trying to get the organization to slow down enough to think about, let's think about this strategically. Let's not just put somebody in that job,
Hmm.
because when you just promote somebody or you just hire somebody because they're the cheapest or that's the fastest or the most convenient, all you're doing is kicking a can down the road with problems that end up back at the HR desk. So that was part of what really excited me about that. And that's where I started with my career, is helping organizations make sure they're putting the right people in the right roles, and then developing managers that bring out the best of those people and make them want to come back. But Maddie, the interesting thing is in the last couple of years, I've added a step before that.
Okay.
So yes, we need to get the right people in the right roles. And yes, we need to have managers that know how to hire and develop and create high performing teams. But I think before we have all that, we need to have clarity. And I think doing this work for so long, I realized that is the piece that is missing. Job descriptions are really outdated. Job descriptions need to be updated every couple of years because of the pace that things are changing. I've worked with organizations and I get the engagement survey results, and it shows things like people don't even understand how they're paid. They don't understand how their performance is rated. Like, we don't have the basics in place. We don't have a way to give our managers feedback on if they're doing a good job or not, because we've never clarified what good leadership looks like in our organization. And it's not the same as having your values up on the wall.
So, what does that first step look like then? How do you share that with your clients?
So first, when I talk with somebody, I find out, because it's usually HR people, like, what are you spending most of your time doing? And most HR people are spending most of their time dealing with people issues. And a lot of those people issues are issues that their managers should be solving, should be able to handle. Are
Mhm.
you seeing that?
Yes. So recently, I've really changed the way I explain policies overall to operations. I have decided I refrain from explaining it as an HR policy completely.
Yes.
I literally will say, this is not an HR policy, even if it's an attendance policy. I say, oh no, this attendance policy, I think we're misunderstanding. An attendance policy is it's never an HR policy. There is no such thing. This is a productivity situation.
Yes.
When someone is not at work, it impacts productivity, correct? Because if they're not
Yes.
here, then they're not here to do their work. So let's discuss that. Let's discuss the reasons why they need to be here. Let's discuss what steps we need to get me involved in to help you communicate what needs to be communicated, but it's not an HR employment guide.
You're looking at this holistically. You're not looking through the lens of, I got to create an employee manual. I got to get people to read it. And I got to get people, because what we're doing is supporting the organization. We are enabling the organization to be profitable. We are protecting the organization against risk. And we are enabling people, all the multipliers of the business on whether it's going to be successful or not. If you don't have the right people, you may make money, you may be profitable, but you're going to limp there. If you get the right processes, the right people, and the right support and structure, you're able to take giant leaps.
It's been interesting seeing the response from operations to say, or to move from thinking, let me ask HR what the policy is or what the response is, to own it, to be able to say, no, we don't do this because it affects us. I don't even need to take it to HR because I know what the answer is. The answer is it's affecting us. It's affecting
Right.
us, and I can explain why. And they usually know the answer. They need to look me in, obviously, if it's FMLA, ADA, personal leave of absence. And I'm speaking about the attendance as the example. But it honestly took me a little bit to get there too, because I was thinking, okay, HR and operations is separate. But that's the situation we got ourselves into a little bit that made it us versus them.
Yes.
And it didn't work. It doesn't work. It isn't two separate things. We are one company, one organization. We need to work together. Different functions, absolutely. Is there friction sometimes? Sure. Every department has competing priorities, but we still need to strive to work together. And so, in framing that differently, I think it's really helped to explain to associates, no, no, we're on the same page. It's all about operations. It's all about profitability. It's all about you being able to do your work.
Yes. And so I think some HR leaders have a hard time seeing themselves as peers
Mm,
of all the other high level people at the table. They're like, well, I'm just an HR person. No, you are the HR person. You deserve a seat at the table and you need to have a seat at the table. And so I've talked to many HR leaders that are, I want a seat at the table, but I don't know how to get there. The fastest way and the easiest way to do that is to talk to your leaders in the organization and find out the problems that they are struggling with. Where are you spending the most time? What is causing the most frustration? Where are you feeling the friction in trying to do your job? And I can guarantee you almost all of it has to do with people. Everything comes back to people. People say technology, but there are still people that make those technology decisions. So once you as an HR leader understand what the problems that the organization is facing, then you go in and fix it. Once you're able to solve that problem, and it usually starts with getting clarity. So you talked about attendance. Well, is it clearly documented somewhere? When is it communicated? Is it acknowledged? Are we holding people accountable? That's all clarity. And once we have clarity, now you have something to hold people accountable to. And it doesn't become punitive. So I'm not calling you out or having to have a negative conversation with you because you're late. It's you agreed to the attendance policy. What needs to happen for you to be able to get here on time or on your scheduled shift? It's a completely different conversation.
I was talking to a leader recently, and one of the frustrations, when you think about the table, right, is like, why are we still talking about the table? We've been talking about the table for 20 years, it feels like. The seat at the table. Well, maybe we don't need to be sitting. Maybe we need to be walking around. It's
Yes.
it's we need to go where the action is, right? To really find out
Yes.
what is going on, going to them, not waiting for them to come to us, meeting more on their terms as well. Uh, but also, it's like asking the basic question of, do they know? Not should they know? Uh, and that's a conversation always with the managers. Like, well, they should know. They should know when they need to get here. Sure, sure. They read the onboarding documents when they got hired, and but do they? Have you asked? Hey, are you pretty clear on when you're supposed to arrive? Do you know how to look up your schedule? Have you actually confirmed this? Do you know how to look up the schedule in the scheduler in the system? Such a basic question. Sometimes it escapes us. It does me too.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the obvious escapes us. You do have a knack for, like, obviously noticing things about people, like, oh, wow, they seem to thrive in this specific area. How do you coach leaders to focus on those things as well, because you can get more from people when you are helping them see those areas where they can excel. Because it can't always be the negative conversation. Not, we're going to talk
Right.
about the no-ish sandwich later, because no, we're not
Yeah.
doing that. But
Yeah.
let's also accentuate the things that someone can excel at.
I know, God, and I love leadership. And you know what? Leadership is like ice cream. There is so many different flavors of leadership. There's books, there's podcasts, there's immersive things, there's these classes, blah, blah. There's so much stuff. And so I'd like to think that I do. So if I'm not taking an unique approach, don't burst my bubble. But when I start with my leadership management training programs or executive coaching, where I start with is, what kind of leader do you want to be? I'm not going to psychoanalyze you. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to start with the 360 and tell you all the things that people think about you, because all of a sudden then that puts you on back footing. It's putting you defensive. It's making you feel like there's something wrong with me. So I rather start with, let's talk about the kind of leader that you want to be. What do you want your people to say about you? What do you want your manager to say? What do you want the CEO to say about you? Now, because everybody that's in leadership, they're in there for a reason. Very few of them are there because it's the only way up and it's a paycheck. Most of them are in it because they want to make a difference.
Mhm.
It could be making a difference in the lives of people, or it could be making a difference on the operation side. It could be that they want to be the one that turns the organization around and they want that recognition of being able to fix things, do things, but they are all in it for a reason. So if I can dig into and identify why they're in the leadership, now they're bought in,
Mhm.
because now the conversation becomes around how do you become that person that you want to be. Now let's look at what's getting in your way. And now let's look at how you can mitigate those risks and things that you can do so you become that person.
Are you trying to tell me that you don't get answers like, oh, I would love to be a micromanager. I would like to be the type of leader that does not trust the folks who report to
Yes,
them. I
that's right.
definitely do not want to delegate ever or have growth opportunities for my team. Do you get those responses?
No, it's you're so funny. No, and the problem is they don't know how to do that. So the will is there. They want to do it. The problem is, and this is what they don't get in typical programs, is how to do it. So we can get the mindset, okay, we all know we need to delegate. The problem is, how do you delegate to somebody without feeling like you're dumping on people? Or if you're a perfectionist, you're really going to struggle to delegate because nobody can do it as well as you can. If you're conflict avoidant, you're going to hesitate to delegate because you don't want to have the negative feedback of this isn't right or this is what I was looking for. So they want to do it, but based on their how they show up as a leader and how they want to show up in as a leader and what is getting in their way, such as not liking conflict. Okay, now there is a way we can delegate and you can hold people accountable that doesn't feel like conflict.
Whoa, let's stop here. What are your best strategies for that? Because that's a big one, right? I mean, we don't get up in the morning. We don't like those conversations. No one gets up in the morning. It's like, I have to have this difficult
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
Those are
Okay.
not comfortable for anyone. Even when you are objectively not terrible at it,
No.
we don't love them. They're uncomfortable.
I still don't like them. I've been doing them a long time. I don't like the thought that this is going to hurt somebody. And I tend to second guess myself. And a lot of leaders do that. Well, maybe I'm being too picky. Maybe I wasn't clear. Maybe there's something going on. So we tend to justify the reasons not to give the feedback and not to hold accountability for that reason. So what we need is, remember when I said clarity? I'm big on clarity and I'm big on process. And it really does start. This is one of my favorite flashcards. I have my deck of coaching flashcards over here, but it starts with expectations. So going back to delegation. So the process is clearly defining what the expectation for the task, the behavior is. This is what I'm looking for. So it could be on how to do something, how to do a report, a new report, could be doing something new they've never done, but have the conversation. In fact, I have a whole worksheet. Everything I do has a process because I'm big on clarity. Do this, do this, do this, do this. So it's introducing, this is what I would like you to do, and describe what it is. Then I stop and I ask
Hmm.
the employee, what are you hearing me say? I'm not saying, do you have any questions? It's a wasted question. Of course, everybody has questions, and some people, depending on your status, may be afraid to ask the question. So I just assume they have questions. I always assume. So
Fair.
what are you hearing me say? Because here's the reality: when there's two people in the room, there's actually four people talking. Because what I said isn't what I meant to say. It happens all the time in conversations. And what the person heard isn't what you thought they heard. So there's different perspectives. So first of all, stop. What are you hearing me say? Okay, I'm hearing you say you want me to create a 25-year gala to celebrate our 25 years. That's great. Okay. My next question, again, because I'm asking questions, I'm not telling. A leader's job is not to have all the answers. The leader's job is to ask the right questions.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say, and I'm not going to go into all the details about the 25-year gala. I'm going to say, what are you hearing me say? And you're going to say, this is what I hear. I want you to do this 25-year gala. My next question, what do you think is going to be easy about doing that project? Boom, boom, you're going to tell me. And guess what my next question is going to be?
What are going to be the challenges? What's going to be most difficult?
What's going to be hard? And so now I'm not talking at you. You're talking to me, and I'm supporting you.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to say, does this sound like a project you'd like to take on? Do you feel like you have the bandwidth to do this? So some things you can negotiate, but some things are you have to do it. So I want you to do this 25-year gala. There's nobody else I want to do it. So I'm going to ask, how does that fit for you as far as capacity? So this is a whole new expectation. Thinking about your current workload, how does that fit in? So all that kind of discussion. And then, so we're going to hammer out the details. We're going to hammer out the expectations. We're going to get a plan. And then I'm going to come back and say, let's go ahead and schedule time for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I want to see how you're doing. I want to check in with you. Is this what you thought it was going to be? What has come up that we didn't identify earlier? I'm not going to assume that all is well, and I am not going to sit here in my chair and wait for you to come to me with a problem,
Hmm.
because I want to nip them early in the bud. So when you have this communication going on all the time, when a problem rise up, and let's say you're somebody that's conflict avoided, or you don't want to bother me because I look busy, then you're sitting in your office chair feeling anxious and stressed because you're not able to move forward and you're not sure what to do. So the problem slows down.
You're going to follow up? You're not just going to be like hands off
That's
and like you're going to check in?
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
Because because at the end of the day, what are we trying to avoid? Conflict. All of this is to avoid conflict.
okay.
So now I'm asking you, and you're able to say, this is hard. I need help with this. And we're able to talk through it. And I say, great. And then I'm going to check in with you in another 2 or 3 weeks to see how things are going. Now you're going to say, okay, all that sounds positive, but what if the person still fails and I still have to give negative feedback?
Right.
So I have a process for doing that, right? So I'm going to say mid project, and I'm starting to notice things are slipping, or I'm starting to get some negative feedback from the stakeholders or from the organization. At some point, we're going to stop and have a conversation. I'm going to ask you, what do you feel like is going well in this project? What's going well? Always start with that. And then where are you feeling stuck? Where are you feeling resistance? Where are you feeling uncertainty? Because I want to see if you are able to identify those areas of friction that I've heard.
Hmm.
And it's much better for you to tell me what they are than for me to sit and point out where you're screwing up.
So I hear a lot of collaboration.
Yes. Leadership is one long conversation.
I think this is the part of developing people that when we get complacent about it, we forget training isn't telling. It's a conversation, it's a collaboration, it's interactive. And same situation. Let me throw this scenario at you. You're laying this out, this 25-year gala. This is the person that has to do the work. And you as the supervisor already know or are speculating strongly because you can't possibly know, right? Speculating strongly, you're going to have a lot of pushback, but this is the person has to do it. And you get into that meeting and they're like, I'm not doing this. I don't know why I have to do this.
Okay.
What does that conversation look like?
So that goes to my buy-in framework. And in my manager training, that is probably the number one problem that leaders face is getting buy-in from the team. And so a lot of it, again, is the conversation that you approach to do it. So if they're going to resist feedback, so let's change from the gala now to, let's say you're changing something in your process. Let's say you're a technician. And now all of a sudden we want you to have conversations with the customer, right? And you just want to go in and do your job and come back out. You don't want to have to talk to the customer. And the last thing you want to do is to sell them a warranty plan.
Okay.
So that is a big change. So again, I'm getting the text together and I am sharing. I'm going to share the why. What is the opportunity? What's in it for them to sell more of these warranty plans? So why should they care about this? Everybody has to have a what's in it for me. How we have done my homework. Why are we doing the warranty plans? Is it because we're sending techs out to redo work and they are not getting paid for it? Is it that we're trying to generate revenue? Is it that the work is down and we're trying to set up clients so they get a yearly inspection? So we make sure that we're keeping our techs busy and scheduled. Like, I'm looking for the positives that go with that so then I can explain why that's happening. So here's the change. Here's the other thing that you have to be really careful of when having these types of conversation, and that it doesn't happen kind of what you said, people are just stonewalling, being like, I'm not going to do that. Because here's the reality that I will remind people if I've tried to have a conversation with them in no uncertain terms, but we are paid. This isn't my company. This is not my money, right? This is the job. And also this deals very much with change. Companies are dealing with change all the time, and that's where this buy-in comes in. There's changing this, they're changing that, and they're changing this, and people are not being bought into it. So first of all, change is not something that we manage. Change is something that we drive. It is coming. You constantly need to be improving. And so you let your team know that. I would love to tell you that things are not going to change. I would be lying. That's not true. Things are going to change all the time. I'm going to keep you informed on them. Again, it's setting that expectation from the beginning. Some things you may really like and some things you may not like. I want to hear your point of view and let's see if we could come up with solutions to work around that. But I will tell you, in some situations, the decision has been made. We're not discussing whether this is a good decision or not. And I need to know at some point what you need to have buy-in from this. Because if you just keep perpetuating and listening to the complaining, why this isn't going to work, we've done this before and it hasn't worked. If you entertain that, you're never going to get anywhere. So it comes down, let me get ready for it, another flashcard. We ask a what question.
Okay.
What do you need to get on board with this decision?
What kind of responses do you typically get? Or do they vary too broadly for you to give examples?
The resistance that you get is there are people that are resistant to change. People that are subject matter experts or an expert at what they're doing don't like change. When you understand why, so somebody that is, let's say, a technician, they don't like change because they already know how to do what they're doing well. So now they're going to concern they're going to fail at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly that. And now you're telling me I've got to engage a customer. I'm shy. I don't have a lot of confidence. What are they worried about? They don't know what to say.
This is
So what they
good.
need is the how.
Okay, so you're kind of speaking to psychological safety there too. Like we
Yeah,
need to basically
yeah,
uh, propose these change in a way that folks have psychological safety to even give that response, to be able to be vulnerable to say, I have concerns because I'm so used to doing things a certain way in
yes,
this job, and this change scares me.
yes.
And if we're not comfortable, feel safe to do that, that could be very scary, depending on the
You're
work culture.
you're right. You're right, Maddie. That's why I like going back and I'm gonna steal that line from you now. I mean, leadership is really one continuous conversation.
Yeah. Wow, that's could be challenging, but whatever we do, and we got to touch on it here. No ish sandwich. Who came up with this back 25 years ago or whenever, 30 years ago? How did we
It's
get there with the, you know,
the feedback sandwich.
yes. Who,
I think
wait,
people
why?
that are, yeah, who knows why, but some people still do it.
I know. It's no. It was very popular and I know some people still do it. I think less. And there's another continuum which I want to get into a little bit as well with you because I'm very curious in your thoughts on it. But how did we get there where people are like, I'm gonna sandwich the bad news? I don't consider it bad news. I think you were talking in terms of clarity. We do need to be clear and transparent about what the situation is. It's not even an issue. It's the situation that we need to discuss.
Yes.
Why are we sandwiching it?
Because
It's
people don't know how. It goes back to what I get I'm preachy about it. People don't know how to do it. So when we're starting with the expectation, so there's different types of feedback. There is feedback that about the job or behavior that you did. So for instance, let's say I wanted you to do a training for all the service managers on, I don't know, neat handwriting or whatever. So I'm not going to just say, hey, I want you to do this training. I'm going to collaborate with you on the training. Let's look at the agenda. I'm going to have you practice, like really set you up for success on it. It's just so frustrating because managers they always say you're already managing, right? You're already spending so much time managing. And most of the time, you're really, really frustrated and exhausted. I'm not asking you to do more things. I'm just asking you to do what you're doing better. So, part of the feedback is then do a debrief.
Mhm.
So after we do something, just sit down and debrief it. So after doing, we could go back to the technicians, going out to the houses and talking to the homeowners and getting a plan. So bring everybody together and let's talk about how that went this week. How many conversations were you able to have? And make it easy for people to say, I didn't do it, because there will be people that didn't do it. I said, who just didn't do it? Well, I didn't. Let's talk about that. What was kind of holding you back from that, right? So it's being very direct. So that's one way to give feedback. The other way is if I've asked you to create a report and it had a lot of mistakes in it. So now I need to give you feedback. First of all, in my training, I work on the mindset of giving feedback is not mean.
Right.
When people stop giving you feedback, that means what?
They've given up on you.
That's right. That's right. And I say, if I were to walk out of the bathroom with toilet paper on the bottom of my shoe, would you tell me?
I mean, I would hope so. It's just
That's right. I would be really upset if you didn't. And I'm going to set that expectation with you as my employee that I will be giving you feedback. You're going to hear good feedback. I'm going to let you know things that you're doing well. And there are times that I'm going to have to give you constructive feedback. And it's because I want you to be better.
nice isn't kind always. So I was having a conversation with someone and after many years in their role, it turned out they had been making a mistake for years, years and years. No one told them. And then the process changed. There was an update, and that's when it was discovered. And by then, it was very difficult for them to pivot and enhance the process because they've been doing the process wrong to begin with for years and years and years. And they were so upset because like, why didn't anyone tell me? I could have changed it. Turned out the person who was looking at the work product, they just were fixing it along the way because that was easier. And
Yes.
the person was willing to fix it, right? They were like, I would have fixed it had I known. And we do people a disservice just from a simple thing. And it wasn't even like a high stakes situation. It was like just a minor thing that could have been fixed. So that's kind of terrible. And so we're like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings, so I'm just gonna fix this forever in perpetuity. You do people a disservice if
And
if you fix their issues instead of coaching and training. And part of the responsibility as a leader is to help your folks if they want to enhance their career path for them to get to the next step. Not everyone wants that, and that's okay. If they want to remain in the same role and that's their vibe, and hey, that's great. But if they want to catapult to the next level, we should want to help them either in our organization or another organization. If we are not giving them the feedback that they need to get there, that's shame on us.
well, you're right. And that's what I was going to say. First of all, do you appreciate feedback? Do you appreciate it when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I know you're very conscientious about the work that you do. So I'm going to give you some feedback on maybe a shortcut on how to make sure that all your cells are correct or none are complete." We want the feedback, but I think you just said something that was key. Your job as a leader is not to do all the work. Your job as a leader is to get the work done through others. And if you cannot do that, you are not moving up.
Mm.
And then you get people that have been in the job for 10, 12 years and they're not moving up. And now they're resentful because they think they should. They deserve to be moved up. That is not how performance is rewarded. Your performance as a leader is not measured by how much you know. Your effectiveness as a leader comes down to decision making and judgment, not knowledge.
We have a lot of resources available, and folks see different value in the resources available out there. And we're not going to delve deep into any of them, right? Because people have different perspectives and opinions about them. And the goal of today's conversation, it really isn't to talk about the resources and assessments out there, the value of one versus the other. I mean, there's a lot of different fan bases as well as to the
Yes.
different assessments. And so we don't want to go there. My perspective is you don't necessarily need those if you can develop enough self-awareness to implement the strategies that some of those assessments help you find. Like that's the value of those assessments. It's like you take the assessment, it highlights some areas that maybe to help you understand yourself a little bit better, that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you didn't see in yourself before, to flag them. But if you don't implement them or exercise them, the assessment itself is worthless. Great, it said something. If you don't implement them in some self-aware way, it didn't really do anything for you.
And again, that is limiting. And you're right. I mean, there's so many use cases in HR for assessment, and one of them is leadership. So I use a framework called front a t-shirt, back a t-shirt. I stole it from somebody. I can't tell you who I stole it from. So in talking to leaders, I help them pull out, what are the things on your front of t-shirt? What are the things that got you to where you are? Right? You're able to make good decisions. You're able to get buy-in. You're great at innovating new ideas. You're great at process. Whatever it is, what are your strengths? And then this is the harder conversation, but what's on the back of your t-shirt? And these are the things that people say about you when you're walking out the door and you're not around.
Mhm.
I'm not going to focus our time together on fixing all the things on your back of your t-shirt. I just need you to be aware of them so you can be aware of how you may be perceived by others, and also some frameworks, tips, tricks, whatever you want to call it, and how to mitigate them. But the literature is clear in leadership. The number one thing is self-awareness.
Mhm.
And the leaders that think they don't need help, The leaders that show up to programs or coaching thinking that they have all the answers and think the problem is everyone else, you have just limited your career. You are not going anywhere. You're not moving up.
And that I think translates just to life in general. That's a human trait beyond just leadership and work.
That's true.
That's
You're
the
right.
perspective in just life. So I joked about it a little bit. I said it in jest about the one-on-ones. Uh,
Yeah.
you said that's part of the process. Obviously, is touching base when you're, especially when you're working on a project, making sure that you're
Yes.
touching base on that, asking those questions out of curiosity, and letting the person speak to their progress, and leading those feedback sessions. Why do you think, or what have you found is the reason managers do resist setting those one-on-ones with their team members?
First of all, I love that you break this up because in my work with organizations, and there are tons of management training programs, I mean, I offer them. People are investing a lot in these LMS systems, right? I mean, learning and development has its own department, which means resources, which means programs, which means a lot of money. And I always say if you did one thing in your organization, is in terms of learning and development, you don't need all that. Teach your managers to have one-to-ones.
Mm.
And the one-to-one, I'm not talking about a task review. That is different. A status update is completely different. In fact, status updates just drive me crazy. If you've hired me, I don't need to let you know that I'm doing my job. That's not a good use of one-on-one time. But the reason that, to your original question, the reason that it doesn't happen is because it doesn't happen at the top. Everything is more important than that one-on-one time with your direct employee. And I say this, if you make a date with your partner and you canceled it routinely, especially at the last minute, what's going to happen to that relationship?
Withers.
That's right. And now engagement drops, discretionary energy drops, there's no sense of urgency. The impact is huge. So, first of all, it has to be created as sacred. The other thing is if managers would realize that if you get in front of a problem, it's a whole lot easier to solve. But managers, 99.5% of managers that I work with are chasing problems
Mhm.
all day long, and they're exhausted, they're frazzled, they're at their max capacity, their people at their capacity. There is no wiggle room. And I see this all the time in engagement surveys. And I can predict by looking at the engagement survey how the company is going to perform. Your engagement survey is not a survey of how happy people are. Your engagement survey is a risk assessment on how well your people are going to execute your strategy. So even if your manager is not modeling that behavior, you ask for it. You create one-on-ones with your people. If you've got a big team that are all doing the same thing, then make it a group team meeting. But if you're one of my direct reports, we're going to meet once a week, and 15 minutes is not a one-on-one time. You can't even get the conversation started. So if you only give them half an hour and it's like, I've got half an hour to get all this in, there's kind of no time to even relax into the conversation. So, but my one-on-one is formula is very simple. Again, I love clarity and I like simplicity. And I'm just gonna say, Maddie, I want to hear what's going well. What's exciting you about your job right now? What are you really liking? What's giving you energy? What do you want to do more of? Like, I want to hear all those things. I want to hear the successes. And then I might say, you finished a project and you were just really pleased with the way it came out, or you've been able to start a new habit that you've been wanting to. I'm not going to just nod my head and say, yeah, that's great. I'm going to say, what do you think attributed to that? What was it different that made that successful? Because I want to help you identify things that you did to drive success. So then you can parlay those into the areas that may be frustrating you. And so the next question is not going to be surprising. I'm going to say what in varying different ways, but basically what's not going well. Where are you finding stress? How stressed are you? Right? Where are you finding obstacles? What's frustrating you? And so I'm going to talk about that. And this is where managers routinely struggle because they want to jump in and rescue the employee.
Hmm.
That's not the job. My job is not to say, well, what can I do to help you? I actually have it right here. I've got a list of questions to help. Let's talk through this obstacle. What have you tried? What's the impact? And we'll go through it and kind of get to the end. And, well, what can you do about that? Right? Because we have agencies. Most of us are smart people that can figure things out. So when you tell people what to do all the time, you're kind of taking that away from them. Let them figure it out, and you're training them how to solve it. And then my last question would be, how can I support you in that?
Okay, so that's a little bit of a distinction because I was going to ask next, when would a manager need to step in to say, how can I help you? But so phrasing it as, how can I support you? It's a little bit of a distinction in the question. What's the difference?
Yes, because it could be that you're genuinely frustrated because you cannot get what you need from another department to do your job.
Okay.
Or people are last minute changing things, which is impacting your ability to do your job. And if you've already talked to the person, or maybe you're a frontline person and you feel, and this is a person over you, then there's probably not a lot that you can do, and that's where I can support you. So that is, now I'm going to take that on as something to go talk to, but I'm going to understand what you've tried, and I want to make sure that you've talked to somebody. Like you said, this is what's happening. If you haven't, I'm going to teach you how to have that conversation. Hey, can we talk about, the process of getting the brush samples to me? We're always 2 weeks below past deadline. And when they come to me 2 weeks, then I'm scattering, I'm putting extra pressure on my team. What could we do to meet that deadline?
Hmm.
So teaching you how to have those conversations. So if you've already had that conversation and still nothing has changed, then how I can support you is go to the next level up and say, and this is my other thing, I don't talk about people. I'm never going to say Peggy is routinely late on getting her samples to me. I'm going to say the current process does not seem to be working of getting the samples to production on time, and this is the impact it's having on the business.
Okay.
Can we work together to solve this?
You're giving me a lot of things to think about. Hmm. So,
Good.
so if I understood you correctly, um, seems like some of us are conflating a check-in and a one-on-one on a
Yes, you're right. Yes.
so that's interesting. That's interesting. And it may make a difference in how we build that relationship and support our team members.
Yes, because now it becomes a coaching conversation with that one-on-one. One, I'm listening to you. And I had to learn this the hard way with my kids, Maddie. I am by nature, I'm a problem solver. If I hear a problem, I want to fix it. I've got a rock here to help me to remember to listen. But I really jump to wanting to fix something. And I learned this the hard way with my kids. They're all grown. And they would call me and they love to complain about work. And if you think your people aren't going home and talking about you,
Oh,
you're living on another planet, because it's happening. And I want to know, and I'm going to ask you in part of my one-on-ones, what can I do to better support you? That's part of that support,
mhm.
right? But anyway, I digress. I have to learn to ask my kids when they start in on something, are you wanting listening mom or problem solving mom?
Hmm.
And guess which one they want?
Just usually listening, right?
And they usually, by the time we hang up, I may, ask a question or two, but they solve it on their own.
Right.
And if I solve it for them, they never build the confidence and they never build the life skills to solve problems themselves.
That is true. And yes, that translates well into what we've been talking about because that is our role as leaders and as peers, really, because we cannot do each other's work. When we're there to support, we're there to back up, back each other up. And when we need it, we're team members, we work together, but we can't fully do each other's work. So, it translates into that setting too.
And that's where this process and impact comes in. So you've got to have a tough conversation with a peer and you don't want to, right? Instead of going, your team does this or you're doing this, it's like, can we discuss this process? And let me tell you why, because this is the impact that it's having. Completely different conversation. Now you've just created a problem solving partner.
I like the hot take on the one-on-ones. I like it. I love it. Kind of switching gears, I am curious. I love the method that you have for your index cards as part of your process. How did you come up with that method?
Yes, it started for myself. One thing that I did early on in my consulting career is I really studied the Socratic method.
Okay.
And so the Socratic method is asking questions. And the other thing I realized early on is that I ask questions also to gain clarity. So yesterday I was doing a call with the team going over their engagement survey. And one of the things that came up was they want more transparency. There's not enough transparency, and everybody says that. It's always on there. So you have to ask, well, what does transparency mean? Because we have to make sure that we're all on the same wavelength. So that's where I always start, is defining terms. I
Yes,
don't, because if I asked you, what does teamwork mean to you? You probably have a very different answer on what teamwork means than how I consider teamwork. Right? So I've got my little stand over here. So I just put this here to remind myself. I'm very aware what's on my back of t-shirt. My back of t-shirt is, she doesn't listen and she interrupts. So it's a
okay.
constant battle I have. So my rock reminds me to be a better listener. And it's not that what you're saying is not interesting to me. It's the opposite. It's like people are talking about something and I get really, really excited about it. And it's like,
I get
it
that.
just, so I've
Yes.
got to hold it. And then I put this little card here to remind me to ask questions and not to tell. Nobody likes listening to somebody that sits and pontificates.
Mm,
It's very
mm-hmm.
boring, right? But when you ask them questions about their experience and what do they want and what's frustrating you and what would you like to be different on your team, what's the kind of relationship you want to have with your boss, then it changes. So that's how that started. And then I just started adding, and then I add the back expectations, because I think most relationships that are not working well come down to expectations,
Have you found
not
that
clarifying.
when you ask the question about the expectations, most folks have a pretty good idea on how to articulate what their expectations are, or do you feel like you have to help them articulate them?
It's definitely helping. So an example of expectations is part of my hiring process is I want to get the key stakeholders that are the hiring manager for sure, and other departments that have to interact with that job. So I want to get the key stakeholders together and see what are their expectations for the person in the job. And it's not always the spoken expectations. Like, I need somebody that understands this and they can use Excel and they're going to show up on time and they have professional presence. Okay, those are all the understood spoken expectation. What I want to get to are, what are the unspoken expectations? Do you want this person to make decisions independently, or do you want them to come to you? So those that's where the expectation really comes into play. And every time I do one of these job target process, again, it's a process, you very rarely have unilateral agreement. Now, if it's a truck driver, somebody in payroll, things that are very consistent, yes. But when you get up in the higher level jobs, there's always different expectations of how the person will do the job. When you do not have alignment on those expectations, because our expectations are different about the job, it's going to take, I don't know how much longer. I wish I had a way to measure it to get to where we're going to try to get. We have to be aligned on how we're going to get there.
No, absolutely. I'm the same way. A firm believer, you have to tell people up front, like what the expectations are. It's not a secret. How are you going to be
That's
measured? This has been so fantastic. We've talked about so many great things about leadership and the distinction between task-oriented one-on-ones and check-ins, and just letting folks know, hey, let's be transparent and have clarity on these conversations so people can really know how to do the best job they can, which most of us really want to do. And managers want to
Mm.
have good teams on their end and be good leaders, so let's give them the tools that they need. So Cindy, how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, I'm glad that you're saying that because I mean, I've been around a while. I'm sure it shows. So I'm at that point in my career where I've seen a lot, but, and also that I want to give a lot. I mean, I've always tried to be very giving with the HR community, but I would love to talk to anyone. Just conversation. What's going on in your business? What's working well for you? What are you wanting to accomplish? My phone number is 954-253-8526. I'm old school, so I still love a phone call. However, email, we can also do a virtual, Cindy at 620partners.com. And I promise you, I'm not going to try to sell you something. I don't like selling. I do like helping. So it may be just a conversation and we made a relationship like you and I did, and we're still in contact. Maybe that I give you an idea on something. Maybe it's just I'm a thought partner. Maybe it's something like, we really do need that, but I need to get buy-in from my leadership. That's another topic I would love to talk about, is helping HR leaders create a business case to get some of the things that they
That's
want.
amazing.
But that is something else. That's something else I can also help with.
That is great. And I'll definitely drop all your links in the show notes for folks to be able to reach out to
Okay.
you, your website, your LinkedIn, and then they could see that and reach out to you. And maybe we can have another episode and we can share more information for folks, and yeah, they can connect with you in that way. And if you look at the show description, if you're interested in being on the program, there's information on how to connect with me and what we look for in guests. Feel free to do that. Like, subscribe, share. And until next time, this is HR Office Hours. See you soon.